Guys, and welcome back. Today I have a bit of a different video for you all. Now, some of you might be surprised at this, but this video tutorial today is going to be about how to dodge and burn on your landscape photos. So for me, I've always had a very large interest in travel and landscape photography, and I'm actually going to be incorporating maybe just a little bit of it into my channel for the time being. So I think it's something that I really want to do a little bit more of on this channel. I do have a lot of tips and tricks around editing landscape photos and travel photos as well. So I feel like I may as well share them along with my beauty photography tips. Obviously, for those who watch me often here on YouTube, you'll know that I've been doing beauty photography and retouching tutorials for about the last 5 years or so, and before that it was mainly fashion photography. So I really want to incorporate just a few more different tutorials that I can kind of expand into doing on this channel. And if you guys are interested in seeing more like this, please let me know in the comments section below. I know that not all of you are fashion photographers or beauty photographers for that matter, but some of the tutorials are relevant to what you're doing in your own genre of photography. So if you have a different genre of photography that you are wanting to expand on and you're wanting to learn more about in terms of retouching, please let me know in the comments section below, because I'd love to do more tutorials like that on here. And let's just quickly go through what this video is going to be about. So obviously I've done a lot of dodging and burning tutorials on this channel beforehand. This is primarily for beauty photography. However, today we're going to look at how you can incorporate this technique on a landscape image. And this is something that a lot of landscape photographers tend to do. It pretty much has the same effect for what you're going for, essentially, whether it's beauty photography, fashion photography, or landscape. But with landscapes, you're not working with skin tones as much. So obviously you've got a little bit more freedom with how you can dodge and burn and where, and what elements you really want to come to the forefront of an image and what elements you may want to make disappear a little bit into the background. So we are going to focus on how you can do this in Photoshop today, and I hope you guys really enjoy the video. Alright guys, so now that we're in Photoshop and I've got my landscape image here, we're going to start doing some dodging and burning to this image. So certain elements of the image that I want to stand out a little bit more or to highlight will be highlighted, and then some of the elements that I want to not stand out as much, we're going to kind of decrease their visibility a bit more by using dodge and burn. So for those of you who watched my channel before, you might have already seen me create dodge and burn layers a million times before, so if you don't necessarily want to see this bit, you can feel free to skip ahead. But we're first going to make our dodge and burn layers. So the best way I find to do this is by creating curves adjustment layers. So to do this, let's go down to our adjustment layers icon down here and create our dodge layer first. So to do this, we'll click on curves and we're going to rename this to dodge. Now to create our dodge layer, we must make sure that this line is right up here. So we're going to drag it up here, and you can see that the image is a lot brighter now. So that's what our dodging layer is going to be. It's going to be adding light to the image in certain parts or on certain elements. So we want that quite bright, and then making sure that the layer mask here is selected, we're going to hold down Control and I to invert it, just so it becomes invisible and we can apply the dodging to the image where we want. Now let's do the same thing again by adding another curves layer, and this time we're going to rename it to burn. This time we're going to bring the line down on the curves properties window, so we want the image to become quite dark. Then selecting the layer mask again for burn, we're going to hold down Control and I to invert. Now I usually like to make a little group here and drag both of these layers into this group, and we're going to rename the group to dodge and burn. Just keeps the retouching layers a little bit more cleaner. Now, if you're used to watching my dodging and burning tutorials for beauty photography, you're probably used to seeing a very small brush used, but this time when we select our paintbrush tool to apply some of the dodging and burning, we're going to make sure that our sizing of the brush tool is quite large. So we want it to be probably around that size for now. And we're also going to make sure the hardness is at 0%. We want to make sure our opacity is at 100% and our flow is at 1%. We can increase this a little bit though if you find that the flow is just not enough and it's taking you too long to dodge and burn certain elements. You can increase that as you go along. Also making sure that our brush settings over here are selected and that transfer is selected. And then under transfer, I usually have pen pressure selected. Now this is because I use a graphics tablet, and I do find that this gives me a bit more control over how I dodge and burn onto an image. So you can do this too if you're using a graphics tablet. If you're not using a graphics tablet, the best way to have a little bit more control over your dodging and burning, if you're using a mouse or trackpad, is to lower the opacity, and you will have to do this quite substantially. So also we need to make sure that white is our selected color. So I'm just going to click these two arrows here to make sure that white is at the forefront. White is going to allow us to paint onto these inverted masks here and let some of those adjustments show through. So first we're going to be working on our dodge layer. And for me, I'm going to be looking at certain elements in the image that I really want to highlight. So just creating a new blank layer here, you do not need to follow along with this process. You do not need to change your brush settings at this point. This is just as an example. But for me, I'm just going to get a really bright color that I can work with here. And I'm going to circle some of the elements that I really want to highlight in this image. Now for me, a lot of the time when I'm photographing landscape photos, a lot of my personal elements that I want to highlight in the image happen to be kind of in the center of the photograph. It's just how I like to take a lot of my landscape images. It just sort of turns out that way. It can vary though. In this particular instance, I really want this area here to be highlighted. So I'm going to be dodging this area here with the waterfall. I really want that to be the center point of the image and really help that to stand out even more. And also kind of like these areas here, I really want to stand out even more. So I'm going to draw around that. So this kind of area I really want to dodge. I'm also going to be highlighting sort of areas like this around the center point. So pretty much this area here as well with the spray coming off the waterfall. I really want that to have a little bit more emphasis. And kind of like these areas up here, I kind of like how the light's hitting some of those parts. Now, I might even extend the dodging kind of around this area too. I kind of like the leading line with the rocks into the waterfall too. So these kinds of areas are the ones that I'm going to be really focusing on dodging the most. And you can see where I'm going to be really putting most of my efforts when it comes to dodging. Now I'm creating another blank layer and I'm going to show you guys where I want to do a lot of my burning. So a lot of the time I tend to do my burning on landscape images in kind of more of a vignette effect. So that's kind of going to be around the outskirts of the image. So kind of to bring the focus into the center of the image. Now, of course, you can add a vignette in Lightroom or in Photoshop. That's usually a pretty easy thing to do. But sometimes I like to have a little bit more control over where those shadows are kind of being added. So these areas are already quite dark in the corners of the image, but I am going to probably just darken them a little bit more. I'm also going to focus on this area in just kind of burning this a little bit more to make it a little bit more shadowed and to kind of direct your attention into this part of the image. Same thing on this side here, just a little bit of burning in the corners and just here as well to kind of bring that focus back into the middle of the image. I might try burning some parts of the sky as well. Burning the sky when it's kind of cloudy like it was starting to become on this particular day can be difficult. And I actually was bracketing with this image. So this is 3 shots in one, but it's still quite hazy in the sky. So we might see what we can do with burning maybe this area to kind of bring the attention once again into the middle of the image. So that's kind of how I'm going to approach my dodging and burning with this. I'm going to delete these layers now. And we're going to go back to our dodge layer and I'm going to just reset my brush settings. And we're now going to start doing our dodging and burning. So remember, as I was drawing onto the image, the parts that I said that I was going to dodge were really going to be the focus was going to be the waterfall, the spray, and parts of the water coming down and the rocks here, and some of the foliage just on the edges here. So first off, I'm going to just run my brush over the waterfall. And you can adjust your brush size as you go along here, but I just like to see how I go. I'm really going to just really focus on the waterfall at the start. And then I'm going to make my brush size a bit bigger. And we're going to just kind of dodge onto the spray just to kind of make that a little bit more highlighted. So just to show you what that dodging has done, that is the before and then that is the after. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more and I'm going to start doing some of the water here. I'm just going to run the brush over these areas of the water. Not too far into the corners here though, but I do want the water to be a little bit more highlighted than what it is now. I'm going to go over these rocks as well. As I said before, that's kind of how I want to approach this image, kind of working with those leading lines into the waterfall. So I'm also going to just pick up some of the foliage just over here. As I said before, I kind of like how the light is hitting those parts. So I just want to bring them out a little bit more, a little bit of the rock too. I'm actually kind of liking how a little bit of the rock sort of stands out there. Just gonna dodge that shadow just a little bit more to get a bit more detail. And you can kind of spend as much time as you want doing this. You can really go a little bit overboard though. I find the more time you spend dodging and burning an image, and the same goes through for beauty photography as well, it can really feel like you're doing too much at times. So I like to just kind of do enough that it highlights, but not too much that it starts to look really unrealistic or anything. So just turning that on and off, you can see how much that's really highlighted those areas a bit more and really helped those areas to stand out. I'm going to move on to my burn layer now. And then remembering these sections that we talked about where I'm going to burn, just to kind of like redraw the focus to the center of the image, I'm going to make my brush size a little bit bigger, and we're going to start burning in this section here, just so it's not as much in focus. So really into the corners to kind of help draw your eye away from that section of the image. I'm going to just go over this section lightly because it is already quite dark in that corner. And then back over this way, just kind of at the bottom here, just a little bit there. And over in this section as well, we're just going to burn parts of that as well. And now we're going to kind of approach the sky, and the sky is a bit of a tricky one, as I said, because it is quite cloudy on this day. It was quite hazy. I didn't have any filters on my camera lens, so really it doesn't look particularly attractive, but we are going to see if we can bring just a little bit more detail back just by burning softly into the sky. See if there's any kind of like cloud formation we can kind of just play on there. There is a little bit of texture going on there, not much though. But I don't want it to just be kind of like a solid white color. You can kind of see there's a bit of blue just showing through the haze. But I don't want it to be too much. I'm actually going to just make my brush size a bit smaller too, and just working on this spray, I'm actually going to just give it a little bit more formation and a bit more detail here by burning some parts of it. Just so it's not kind of like a really thick cloudy haze, that it kind of has that texture to it. And then a little bit more down in the bottom here. Okay, so now turning on and off that layer, you can see that that's really helped draw your eye into the middle of the image. So you can see that this part here was quite standout, and obviously this part here, it really does draw your eye originally, but once we've burned those parts of the image in, they're not as standout and you don't tend to look at them as much. Now I want to do a full before and after here of these layers and show you guys what kind of impact this has made from the original image. So this is the before, and now this is the after. So you can see that it really does give a different effect to the image. As I said, you can work on this for as long as you want or for as little as you want. It really depends on what you like to achieve with an image. But this is a really basic representation of how you can dodge and burn on a landscape image, and how you can highlight and remove certain elements just by using those tools. So you can see our challenge was to kind of highlight this center point of the image, which I believe has been done here. And you've kind of sort of hid certain elements as well. And just once more, before and after. Alright guys, so if you like this video today, please let me know in the comments section below. If you want me to do more tutorials like this for different genres of photography and retouching, please let me know as well. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure that you do, because I will be posting a lot more content in future. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!